Hello and welcome to today's episode of Next Wave TV. I'm your host, Tony Reale. Today we're here in beautiful Naples, Florida, together with my wife, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hey. We just got done shooting a wedding for some friends of ours. They invited us down to Florida to shoot their wedding. And we said sure when they told us that they would be putting us up at this wonderful resort. And they was on a nice dinner cruise, a real beautiful location. So we're here at the beautiful resort, just chilling and relaxing by the pool and the hot tub and the palm trees. It's just a beautiful area. And so I wanted to do a quick episode for you guys talking about photography. A lot of people have gone from video cameras to depth of field adapters, and now with DSLR shooting video, there's a lot of video producers that have picked up DSLRs just to shoot video. And then people asking, well, can you do photography for me? Well, photography is a different beast than shooting just video by itself. So I want to shoot an episode and talk about the differences for photography, a few tips for you guys before you get going, saying, sure, I'll shoot that wedding, and then getting to the wedding and going, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm going to go back to my house and I'm going to go over some tips, and then we'll hopefully be able to get you guys up and going and learn how to shoot some photography. All right, now the first tip that I'm going to give you is probably the last one that you ever expect me to say. But if you've never shot a wedding before, don't let this be your first wedding. It's very important. Weddings are very important to people, and the last thing you want to do is get on there and forget things or not be certain how to do it and totally ruin that person's day. First of all, you're going to ruin it and feel bad. Second of all, if they're paying for it, they're probably not going to pay for it. And lastly, you're never going to get any recommendations. You're probably going to have lots of bad rumors going around. So you just let this not be the first thing. Try and be an assistant to somebody else, or if you have a family or friend that's getting married, say, I'd love to come and shoot. Don't be the primary photographer, but just volunteer to or ask if you can come and shoot. So try and develop some skills and not let the wedding, because weddings are very, very particular. There's certain things that have to happen one after another. You've got family portraits, you've got close-ups, there's a lot of specific things that need to happen, and watching another person shoot a wedding is a great education, and it'll help you in the long run. So don't let this be your first one. Try and get some tips. Also, you can check out different websites for lots of other resources. Alright, next thing to remember when shooting a wedding or even regular portrait photography, the client is the one that's in charge. You may be accustomed to, on a video shoot, if you're doing independent film or short film, to being the one that's in charge, but it's very important to know that the client is in charge. And this is sometimes a lot of video people forget this, because you can get into lots of headaches. And this is one of the reasons I personally don't do weddings too often, is because you can easily get some people that can be very cranky and just be difficult to work with, especially when you're dealing with a wedding, which is a very important day for a lot of people. So let that be an example. Always be trying to do exactly what your client wants, and try and help them out. You're not always going to be able to do everything they want, but you want to develop a good enough rapport with them so that they understand this. You can't be in every spot at the same time, which is another reason that it's good for you to have an assistant when shooting a wedding. The wedding that we were shooting down in Florida, my wife was my assistant, and she was operating a secondary camera. There are a lot of times during the wedding, especially during the ceremony, that I wasn't able to get every single angle, and so she was able to be that secondary camera. So that helped out a lot. I focused on the close-ups, and she focused on some of the wider shots and different angles. And when you're working with your client too, there's a lot of different ways to shoot. Some people will shoot telephoto longer lengths, and I'll get into this a little later with lenses, but some people, like myself, you develop a good relationship with your client and even the reverend, the pastor, anyone else that's going to be involved with the ceremony, that you can kind of sneak in and get some close-up shots while going around people. This takes a lot of practice, though, so that's one of the reasons that you don't want this to be your first ceremony. So next thing is to keep your kit small. In video production, it's very custom to have tons of bags and tons of gear, and a lot of times you want to have this not just so that you look professional, but to have every need that you have. But when you're shooting a wedding, you want to keep your kit as small as possible. This is the kit that I use down in Florida, and I'll show you here. It's got my 5D Mark II, and then a couple extra lenses, my flash, and batteries and stuff like that. But really, I don't have that much besides the camera. My camera is obviously my most important factor, but I kept my kit small. This is something I could throw on my back. It wasn't a backpack, but I could just throw it over my shoulder, have it riding against my back for the entire day without totally killing myself. So you want to keep your kit small because you're going to be needing to grab things out of it all day long, so you want it on you. Some people do have like little carts that they'll carry with, and they'll go to it like during the reception or between weddings and stuff like that, have extra cameras, and that's fine if you want to do that, but at the end of the day you want to keep your kit as small as possible. So let's talk about lenses here. This is the 24-105 f4.0 kit lens that comes with the Canon f5D Mark II if you were to buy it with the kit lens. This is a great lens. It's got good reach. On the 5D, f4 gives you very good shallow depth of field. So to get those artistic shots that a lot of people really like, you can get some really great results for it. It's a good zoom. 24 is nice and wide on a full frame sensor, and it zooms out to 105mm, which is plenty far enough for your average shooting. Now, if you are somebody that really wants to be farther away and get closer pictures, or you're working with a wedding where they want you nowhere near the front, then you may need to get a longer zoom. You can look at the Canon. Obviously, I'm talking about Canon. Nikon has equivalent lenses, and you can check on these if you have a Nikon camera. But the Canon makes a 70-200 f2.8, which is a great lens. Highly recommend that for doing telephoto. And then the counterpart would be the 24-70 f2.8. So between the 24-105 f4 and the 24-70 f2.8, they're both great lenses, and I would recommend that you look at one of those as being your primary lens. Especially during the ceremony, you're going to want to go from wide to telephoto frequently, and you don't want to have to be switching lenses during the ceremony. Some people will have two cameras that they carry on them, but you may not have the budget for that, so it's good to have a good zoom lens. In my kit, I also have a couple Zeiss lenses that I brought along with. These are lenses that I use mainly for video, but they're great. I had a portrait lens, which is my 85 f1.4, which is just a beautiful lens, and it's just amazing for video production. You can just see that. I love this lens. One of my favorites. Just crystal clear and very, very sharp even at f1.4. This is a more expensive lens, but you can get some great results with it. And then I have my 28mm f2.0. So this one, once again, was another really nice lens for getting wide shots that were also very fast. In fact, I'll show you a couple pictures here. This is an example of a shot that I used a 28mm, and I had just a light that was coming from the top corner of the room. It was just a little canister light, very, very little, and I was shooting at 1/30th shutter speed at f2.0 at I want to say around 1600 ISO. On the 5D, you can get away with 1600 ISO without having it be very grainy, and it just had a fantastic look. I would have not been able to do this with my f4. It would have been way too dark. So having that f2.0 was really nice. And then here I'll grab a shot with the 85mm f1.4. This is just a beautiful shot of the bride as she's getting her hair ready, and it gave me this really artistic, shallow depth of field. She loved the shot, and so it's nice to have an arsenal of faster lenses so that you can get those artistic shots. Also, sometimes during your reception, during the rehearsal, there are times where you can get these really cool artistic shots, which I'll show you one right now, where you can't really get, it's hard to get them to use it during a ceremony, because it's hard to get, especially the Zeiss lenses, which are only manual focus. They don't have autofocus. So I usually only use them during times like the reception and the rehearsal, times where it's not during a ceremony where I need critical focus, and I can kind of take the time to set the focus. But anyways, so that's my arsenal of lenses. You can also get a super wide if you want. Those would be like a 10-16mm. Tokita makes them. There's other brands out there too. They're great for artistic shots, getting these really wide angles. I don't have any. I do know a lot of photographers that use them and get some great results. So that's another option too. Another important factor is lighting. Now, if you're doing video production, you're probably familiar with doing continuous lighting, which is using bulbs and fluorescence and stuff like that. And you've probably checked out some of my other videos about continuous lighting. While you're doing a wedding, it's important to use natural light as much as possible, because you can get some really pretty results, and understanding that you can shoot at slower shutter speeds. So if you have a tripod or a table or a solid surface that you can set your camera on, you can use longer shutter speeds. You're not limited to normal video camera or film camera for that matter, which you have the 180-degree roll shutter. So if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you would want to have your shutter speed at 1/60th. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you want your shutter speed at 1/48th. So this is a limitation you have for video, but with photography you can have shorter speed. You could have a second long shutter speed, and you could have really dynamic lighting. But there are going to be scenarios where you're shooting quicker, especially think of a reception where people are dancing around. If you try to do a slow shutter speed, you're just going to have motion blur. It's going to look horrible. So that's where you definitely want to have a flash. Don't let the flash be your go-to item where you're always going to be shooting with it. Learn how to use a flash artistically. This is the 580 EX2. That's it's the top line flash that Canon makes. It has a built-in diffuser card and stuff like that. But I never use these because I use a separate diffuser. This right here is a Gary Fong diffuser, also known as a Lambency diffuser. And this just slides over the top, and it's been pet named the Tupperware diffuser. But what it does is it bounces and creates a softer light. Consider this like a soft box for your flash. This creates a very soft light, very flattering to skin tones, and then it's not very harsh. Direct light, imagine taking a Fresnel, a 600 watt Fresnel, and just shining in somebody's face. It's very unflattering, very unpleasant, and you don't have very nice, just a very unpleasant looking image. So you put a diffuser on there. What this is designed to do is you point your flash upward. And this is another thing I want to talk about real quick, is using reflection. A lot of people will think, okay, I'm just direct light it and shine it right directly at the location that I'm shooting at. Not very seldomly do photographers do that. Usually they bounce flash. So you're reflecting the flash off the ceiling, or if you're using a diffuser like this, this would reflect the light off the ceiling, also catch some of the light in here and reflect it forward, so you get a more filled in image, kind of fills in the shadows underneath the eyes. If you don't want to get one like this, you can get one like this, and then this is just a smaller one that just pops on there. And once again, you can shoot forward, or slightly, kind of angle your flash just slightly forward to get the same results. So there are different models. There's the whale tail. There's several different models that you can get out there, and you can experiment around. You can just get a piece of paper, cut it, and slide it into the little gap right here, and you can experiment with that just to create a normal bounce. So experiment around with it, but don't let the flash be something you're always using. Let it be used both when absolutely necessary or for nice artistic looks. Getting a good flash too, you can rotate it so the flash is now sideways, and I could bounce it off of a wall over here and have a nice side lighting for the person. So that's getting a high quality flash is definitely very beneficial. It's something that you should look at investing in. But lastly, and probably most importantly, we're going to talk about workflow really quick. If you've edited if you do video, you know that you have to edit. You use an NLE, a nonlinear editor, and then you may use color correction. You may use After Effects to do something like that. Well, you're probably familiar with Photoshop, and you may think, I have Photoshop because I might have the Adobe Premium Production Suite, which has Photoshop with it, and I can just edit my photos on there. Well, if you're doing an average wedding, you may take anywhere from 500 to 5,000 pictures depending on your skill level, depending on the length of the wedding, and stuff like that. Trying to edit those in Photoshop is going to be an incredible pain, because Photoshop is a great RAW editor, and that's another thing we want to talk about quick. Shoot in RAW. If your camera can shoot in RAW, because it's very forgiving. You can, a lot of times I'll shoot in aperture priority, which means that I'll have it set at f4 or whatever my f-stop, and just let the camera interpret the rest of it, and it may not always be right. The exposure may be off. But if I'm shooting in RAW, I have a lot more latitude to correct that in post. But Photoshop's got a great RAW editor, but it's slow because you can edit a picture, but then you move to the next picture and you have to do exactly the same thing. The great thing about the program that I want to recommend to you is Lightroom. It's Photoshop Lightroom. It's made by Adobe, but it's specifically designed for photographers, because you can do things like take your picture, bring it into a RAW editor, bring your entire list of pictures, edit one, move to copy everything that you've edited, all the RAW settings, move to the next picture and paste them, and then you can just tweak a few of them. It saves you tons of time. I did engagement pictures that would take me in Photoshop probably several hours or several days, where I did them in Lightroom I was done in a half hour. And this was about ended up taking about 100 of the engagement pictures, and it took me like literally a half hour to go through and edit all of them, because I was in very similar locations for most of the shots. So I highly recommend Lightroom. It's going to save you a ton of time. It's going to make your pictures look great. And as you know, just shooting video RAW is very boring. You want to color correct it, you want to give it an artistic feel. The same thing goes with photography. You can have an average looking shot, but then you can bring it into Lightroom or your RAW editor and tweak it around and get familiar with ways to tweak it around and make your average looking shot look fantastic, because you were able to create an original look to that. So it's not everything about photography is getting a shallow depth of field shot or just getting a really fancy location. Sometimes you can take an average looking shot and you can edit it properly and get a really nice shot looking out of it. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you can use these tips and try. Don't let this be the end all be all. Don't just go out and shoot a wedding. Like I said, try and check out other websites for other tips and resources, and just go ahead and experiment. Definitely try out a program like Lightroom, get familiar with the RAW workflow, and then go have some fun with it. Well, I hope you found those tips helpful, and hopefully that'll get you at least somewhere started so that you can start shooting your own photography and just get up and going. For more information on DSLR video shooting tips and other photography tips, feel free to check out our other YouTube videos. Also, you can check out our blog, nextwaveg.blogspot.com, for other additional tips. And then be sure to check out our website if you have time, creativeedgepro.com, and you can see some of the other stuff that we've been doing, some of our video shoots, some of our photography, and just hopefully pick up some ideas from that. And be sure to check out some of the sponsored links that you see on this site. Those links help us keep making these videos for free. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.